Hey guys, Professor Z here, and this video is going to cover the essence of project planning, and hopefully you've looked up PMBOK, it's PMBOK, which is in the PMI Institute on the internet. I know you can actually buy project management books from the Amazon or Barnes & Noble or things like that, but I've also have those books myself. So hopefully you've brushed up on project planning. You understand what a project plan looks like. So let's get into it. My project plan I'm going to show here is going to be for the electrical. Remember, my bachelor's degree is electrical engineering, so this is one of my fortes. And yes, that's why I could wire this whole log home myself and calculate the loads and install the solar panels and also the charge controller and inverter and all of the breakers and surge protectors, and have it all wired and up to code 100% and signed off by the city inspector. So I do not recommend you doing any electrical work unless you are actually certified as an electrician or an electrical engineer. So that's a caveat with electricity. Again, anything that you do in your DIY project, your do-it-yourself project, is you're doing at your own risk. I'm not responsible for any of your mishaps, financial loss, injury, burden, or even death. That's on you. So make sure you understand what you are doing before you take the project on. And then hopefully these videos are helping you to understand what you can do and cannot do, which is one of the reasons why I'm doing these. So, all right, let's jump into project planning here. So you can see down at the bottom here, I've got, porch build out, electrical, plumbing, gas, septic, tank installation, solar panels installation, the fireplace, stone, interior walls, appliances, flooring. I've got many more tabs as well, but those are just some. We'll just cover the electrical. Also, these are going to be put out on the web, university1310.org, on our nonprofit university website. And probably for a small donation, you can take these project plans. I'll say maybe $5 or something. I can give you these project plans, and you can actually run with them. But all project plans are pretty much framed the same way. I've done a lot of work in the IT world, even working for the U.S. government for many, many projects. And as a project manager, I've done, many project plans. So I kind of simplified this one, but a real project plan, we would have a lot more columns and a lot more items on here. But for a DIY project in building your own log home, these are kind of what I streamlined it to be, these columns right here. So we start in column B. I got item number. Make sure that you have item numbers because these are going to be used for dependencies. Remember, a dependency is something that a previous step needs to be completed before the next item number can be done. And not every item number is dependent on the one above it. Sometimes it could be dependent on one that's, 15 above it or 10 above it. So, initial planning phase. These are my milestones up here. Pretty much you got Dr. Z and City. You look at all of these items here. You put the people up here that are in your subcategory. This is my milestone here. I should say sub-milestone because electrical project plan is a milestone in my overall DIY project. So this would be a sub-milestone. But these are individual tasks in the milestone here. The next one is duration. You would add up all of these durations. So for instance, to calculate the load for the appliance, took me 1 hour to do that, let's say. Mark out fixtures on my certified plan. This is where I took the blueprint and actually, now I made copies of the blueprint and I recommend doing that. You can actually go to any industrial copying place, and they will make life-size, full, exact size, actual size blueprints for you, which are copies. And then I had many copies, by the way, and one copy of the certified blueprints were used for electrical drawings. I basically laid out the entire electrical grid to the house with the receptacles, the light switches, the light sockets, any type of special circuitry needed, maybe for 220 dryer or 220 range, hot water tank, things like that, that you might need. Were all done. Jet pumps for your well. Then I laid out the panel box, the load that I needed, and also I drew wiring in the blueprints itself, so I knew where the wires were going to go. I got that detailed. Typically, electricians don't need to do that, but I just wanted to see everything on paper first before I got to it. So then pull electrical permit. Took 1 hour basically. Here you want to do the start date and end dates of these, and I like to put in a third date. So actual start and actual end, as opposed to the baseline start and the baseline end date, which these are right here. So I would have 2 more columns, which would be actual start and actual end. In case this line item slips, you want to track that as well. All right, so here's the predecessor column. So what this is telling me is this guy here is A003, mark our fixtures on certified plan. So the dependency, basically, the predecessor to this is going to be A002, which means I need to understand the load for all the appliances in all the room, and the lights, switches, and things. I've got a nice neat website out there for you to calculate all the loads that you will need. You'll type in everything, whether you've got a microwave or you've got security cameras outside, you got a plasma TV, or is it an old-fashioned tube television, if you got ham radio equipment, if you've got lights, every light fixture in the house would be plugged into here. Your refrigerator with the number of kilowatts will all be done as well. So once that was done, I was able to mark out on my certified plan the fixtures and also what I needed, whether I needed 220 volts or 110 volt. And of course, with solar panels, you do have DC volts coming into the house, and you can wire up some things in direct current, like your motor for your well and things like that. So anyhow, and then I've got notes over here. Basically draw out every fixture, switch, wire, plan. I need to do a spell check on here. And as we go down, the next milestone would be, now notice this milestone is B001. However, before we can even start this block, notice I have a predecessor of A001. So this entire block must be completed before we even get down to this one. Now, not all of them have that, by the way, but this one did. The predecessor was for the B0001, okay? And then electrical box installation. I was drilling holes at this point, running circuits to the basement of each room. Remember that, typically code, and you need to check code for yourself, but kitchen, bathrooms, and garages require 12-2 wire. And the rest of the rooms, like bedrooms and living rooms, could have 14-2. However, I went ahead and did 12-2 for the entire project here because I wanted to make sure that I could use extra amperage if I needed it. And remember, 12-2 wire is actually a 20 amp breaker, and 14-2 wire is actually 15 amp breaker. And then, of course, if you go lower in gauge of wire, it means you can go higher in amperage of breaker, but those are kind of rules of thumb right there. So, and then I've got basement, build frame, main service panel, whatever amperage you're going to use. I know some older homes have like a 60 amp panel with fuses. I don't recommend that. We have too much equipment in today's world. Remember that this is an off-grid retreat. I'm basically living back in the 19th century, which is the 1800s. However, I have 21st century technology to be powered with solar panels. So not only do I have orchards and gardens and cattle and horses and plows and machinery from back in the 19th century, I also have 21st century technology with plasma TVs, security cameras, and I don't have Wi-Fi, by the way. I don't think you want to hook up your off-grid retreat to the overall surveilling internet portal. So anyhow, maybe in the future I will. We'll see what happens. But so the next thing on electrical then is outside drilling holes, ensuring circuits run the basement, install electrical watertight boxes for plugs, and then install watertight boxes for switches, and then watertight boxes for fixture. You have to use watertight boxes on the outside of the house. And then wiring the home. And I don't want to go through all of these, but you can take a look at all of these. Hook up the plugs, the switches, the fixtures. I pretty much labeled every step of the job I was going to do. Wire main panel box, grounding wire. There's a certain gauge copper wire for grounding I needed to use to make sure I had the proper ohms of resistance because of the solar panels. That's something that you're going to have to calculate or have a professional do it. I would recommend if you're not electrical savvy. And then testing, hooked up. Essentially, I hooked up the generator. I don't recommend doing this because this is dangerous and you could be electrocuted if you don't know what you're doing. But I hooked up the generator and put 220 volts onto the panel box, and then tested every switch, wall outlet, fixture, and appliance in the house to ensure that everything was working properly. The 4-way switches, 3-way switches, and things like that were all working. So then again, call the inspector in, make sure that they have the first walkthrough. You might need to tweak some things, and then have a final walkthrough with him, and then have a sign-off. Then I go ahead and clean up, take trash to agreeable dumpster. Remember that you're off grid, so you're going to have to discuss with somebody in the city that you're going to be using their dumpster periodically to toss bags in. As long as you don't overdo it and you're not too regular on dropping boxes of or bags of debris off, they're pretty good with allowing you to dump 1 or 2 bags here and there, every couple weeks or so. And I try to do it after hours so they don't see me, but I'm sure they got in the morning and see a couple bags in there and said, oh, he must have been here. But anyways, they're pretty good with allowing you to do that. You don't want to fill up their dumpster every week, but you're going to have a place to dump your building materials and things like that. Make sure you have permission to do that, and you also have the right dumpster to dump into, because some things need to be recycled. So, all right, so that covers that for project planning. And as always, like this video, and if you could subscribe to the channel, that would be most appreciated as well. And we'll have more videos out there for you to watch. So, all right, that about covers project planning, and Godspeed.